What's up, our people?
Woo-ha! We are
Shalom.
Yeah.
Hey guys, welcome back to Testing Normal. This is Curtis.
This is Jordan.
And this is episode 130. We are ecstatic to have you guys with us tonight.
Large and in charge. And you've got
Large and in
a bit
charge.
of a cough, but you've got more energy than last week. Last week, I believe, we should have just called it Lol You.
That was a rough one, man. I was sick last week.
Yeah.
I was in like the throes of like my kiddos had all had a bad cold. And it was like right when it was about to hit you, you know, and like your whole immune system just ramping up and you have no energy.
Yep.
And your throat's super like knives in it.
And you feel like
that was
you
that was
can't
rough.
remember when you felt better. Isn't that a strange feeling?
Mm-hmm.
You're like, does this get better? Or is this how I always felt?
It's so true. Oh, and it's not only that, it's will I always feel this bad? Like,
Right.
Maybe I will never feel better.
Right. Yeah. What if I don't?
Terrifying.
Like,
what if I don't ever get
yeah,
better?
you're like,
This
am
could
I always
happen.
going to ache all over the place?
Yes, exactly. It's a terrifying thing.
Okay.
Am I always going to have this explosive diarrhea? I hope not.
So speaking of explosive diarrhea, we were chatting about this, but I told you I wouldn't tell you the
Yes.
full story until we went live because somehow you hadn't found out about it yet. I don't know how. I didn't really tell anyone about the story, but you did know that our dog was sick. And it was like, I never thought I would be that person that would take a dog to the vet, but when it's your son's best friend, you do what you can.
Right.
But before that, so a day prior on Saturday, my son Michael and I, who's been on the podcast before, great kid, we went out and drove RC cars for a very long time. And we came back, and of course his dog was super happy that we returned, right? And we walk in the door, and he runs up, and he's like, ooh, you're here, you're here. And we walk in, and Michael goes, hey, buddy. And the dog runs off and stops. And Michael goes, what is that? And I was like, what the hell? And
Whoa.
I look down, and there is like the biggest rat I've ever seen sitting on my floor.
What?
Right. Yes. I mean, it was, if you go to like get a Texas baked potato, that's what this thing was. Like massive.
Whoa.
And it was not moving. And Michael immediately grabs Sheldon, the dog, out of the way. And I was like, what the? Grabbed a bucket, threw it over the top of it, but it wasn't moving. So I was like, this thing we had some industrial rat poison, you know, judge me if you want. That's the way you kill rats. You do not let them go places. Rats don't deserve to be alive. And it was.
So a quick interesting thing about rats, they don't typically have a gag reflex. And so when they take poison, they don't throw it up, and that's what kills them.
Well, also what kills with rat and mouse poison that's like this is it dehydrates them. So they no matter how much water they get, they just get dehydrated. And that's why they dry up. And that's what also makes them not smell in the walls, at least for very long, if they die in the wall or whatever. Anyway, grab this thing. It is no longer with us on this planet. And then the very next day, the dog gets a fever, gets sick, everything. We're like, what the heck? Did it lick the thing?
Oh,
Did
wow.
it bite the thing? Did it whatever? So that's why we ended up taking him to the vet, just to make sure, because yeah, there was lots of gross things going
that's
on.
wild.
So yeah.
Dang. So you think there could have been some consumption?
We don't know. The vet said even if he had like eaten the rat, that the potential of him getting sick from that is pretty low. But
except for the fact that Sheldon is the size of a large
rat. Yes. I think that's what startled him the most, is he was like, hey, look, another dog. Anyway, it was big and it was heavy. I will tell you that. Like, I carried that thing outside, heavy, disgusting.
Really?
Yeah, it was pretty nasty.
So,
that was my weekend.
Rat traps rather than the poison.
Yeah, but then I have to get them, and usually they'll just run away and die, and it works really, really well. Also, so growing up, I grew up surrounded by fields, and the best thing was honestly poison. Like traps, a lot of times they get out. We'll catch some mice in traps and stuff, but the best thing, because they'll sometimes take it back to their babies and stuff, is just like just nix it, you know. And I'm sure people are like, oh my gosh, you're so mean. I don't care.
No, I don't think
really
so.
care.
I don't think so.
I'm okay with being mean.
I don't think so. Well, actually, you know what? I think that brings us to a decent point of our TILs for starting off our day.
Absolutely. Today I learned rats are giant.
Rats can be giant. Well, they're not exactly rats, but they kind of are rats with wings. My first TIL is, today I learned eastern gray squirrels.
Okay. I was thinking
bats with wings, but
that just rhymes with rats.
Yes, sorry. But eastern gray squirrels were purposefully introduced to American city parks in the early 19th century as a form of entertainment, and for those who lived in cities to get more exposure to nature. So I guess they didn't have enough rats at that point, so they decided, hey, let's add some furry rats to our environment.
I think that would terrify. Like, if you hadn't been in nature and you're like, whoa, okay, so clawy little rodents fly in nature, I'm out. I'll stay in the city. Like,
yeah, that's true as far as bats go. Yeah, I don't know why I said earlier rats with wings. That's. But
even squirrels, like if you're like, oh, they could jump, they could get tangled in my hair, they could get me, they could bite me, like they can fly after me. Like, I don't know.
It's a weird one.
Kind of scary.
It's a weird one.
Anyway, so
you only have.
I only have one.
Okay, I'll
just do another one.
Okay, hit me with your one, and I'll do my next one, because it does have something to do with mice.
Okay. Oh, good. We'll stay on cough.
Today I learned early 20th century pregnancy tests involved a lengthy and costly process where the urine sample would be injected into 5 mice per woman. The mice would then be dissected to find out if they were ovulating. These results would be obtained in about a week or so, and that would help them discern whether or not the woman was pregnant, because the HCG levels would affect the ovulation of the mouse. Kind of cool. And I guess apparently I was looking more into this. I went down the mouse hole, the rabbit hole with this a little bit. Yeah. They did it with rabbits, but they also did, apparently a big one was with frogs, and they would reuse the frogs. Somehow they would actually be able to keep the frogs alive and reuse them sometimes for that. So that's pretty.
And that is how incredible. We got Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That's interesting. I wonder if they had a home pregnancy test. You just buy 5 mice and, take them home or something.
We might have to re-implement that. I don't know. We'll see.
I think it's viable.
Corner of the market.
Yeah. Today I learned, in addition to being blind, Stevie Wonder temporarily lost his sense of smell and taste after a car crash in 1973.
Oh, that'd be... I mean, at least he wasn't deaf after it.
True. Yeah.
But
that's a lot, though.
Still.
Like,
yeah, it's not.
Also, in a car crash, like, that seems odd. Like,
it seems odd.
Like, smell and taste. You're like, oof. Oh, crap. I can't taste or smell anything anymore.
That doesn't, I guess, he must have had like a really bad nasal trauma that messed up his olfactory senses.
Nasal trauma. Yeah. But that taste, like, I guess they are linked, but like
70, yeah.
But still
70% of your taste is smell. Okay. So today I learned my last TIL. Well, actually I have 2 more. Today I learned that if the moon were to come closer than 12,000 miles to the Earth's gravitational forces would pull it apart, transforming it into rings like the ones around Saturn.
I like it.
So if we could get the moon approximately, a little bit closer, we could have some pretty cool rings around our Earth, which would be pretty dope.
But would also like some of it slam into the Earth? I feel like that's also a risk we would run.
Yeah, if you got too close, obviously, right? We would just need it to be just right. Just right. Comfy cozy. Last TIL, which is the most important one probably, and probably the most important thing we're going to even say tonight, for people out there that aren't aware of this yet, and you might need to be sitting down. I don't know if you are, if you're not.
I'm standing.
But
I'll sit down.
The first episode of Picard Season 2 is currently out. And you can watch it on Paramount and I'm sure YouTube TV. But for those connoisseurs of Jean-Luc and connoisseurs of seeking strange life and new civilizations, exploring new worlds, go watch it. Pretty exciting stuff. That's all I need to say.
My brother texted me. Well, also he texted me a shower thought we get to listen to later, but also he texted me that his kids, they are excited to listen to us in the car. They picks them up apparently tonight, and then on the way home.
Oh, awesome!
I was like, oh, so we should refrain from swearing and be good examples or something. So shout out to Jude.
Shout out to the kiddos. Shout out to
Jude and Elijah.
Jude and Elijah.
Okay. Let's see. Before we get into Russia, because we talked about that so much last week, I'm super interested to hear about this first thing that you have posted, because this is a big deal and I don't think people understand.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine at the end of your driveway was a ton of junk and you just couldn't leave ever. And then imagine that's the planet and that's like actually a problem that we might have to someday. We'd have to solve that. But we need to start picking it up before we couldn't leave our planet, right? So tell us about that.
So this is an article I was reading about, and I was fascinated by it, guys. Totally gripped by this. So last month, a private satellite tracking company spotted a Chinese spacecraft apparently grabbing and throwing a dead satellite away into like a graveyard orbit kind of situation. Which seems kind of like something out of Star Wars, right?
So bizarre.
So bizarre.
Also super weird that this is like shrunk down. Like it will not shrink. It's like made for,
or it's blown up. It's large.
Yeah, it's made for mobile or something. This is insane. I just wanted to find the picture, but I can't find. Oh, there it is. There we go.
What's fascinating about this situation is the Chinese organization that's running this satellite is or space cleaner, we're calling it right now, is saying, it's to kind of get rid of certain debris and to remove certain things that could be in the way of launching, right? But this actually is a significant security concern that people are kind of freaking out right now in the government, because they don't know, is this actually something that could potentially be a weapon utilized to remove and attack currently active U.S. government satellites? Because if it has the capacity to grab old satellites, it has the capacity to grab new satellites. So going back to Space Force, right?
Yeah,
we have a potential risk from foreign national or foreign nations to potentially grab our satellites. And I was watching this video about the potential risks of invasion in Taiwan, right? And one of the risks for the people in Taiwan is not having the capacity to visualize what's going on if China rapidly takes out their satellites and takes out their local ground network.
Right.
But they're saying, well, Taiwan will be able to utilize the U.S. and a lot of our information services that we could provide them in communication from our satellites. But if China uses these now space cleaning services to capitalize on our potential insufficiencies in security with our satellites, it's kind of a wild situation that I had no really.
Well, when I saw it at first, I was like, wait, good ones? And then I'm like, oh, wait, no, they're not good ones. They're bad ones for now.
Could be bad.
Yeah, that was my thought too. I was like, this could be a problem if they're not like cooperating. It's like, what if the Roomba for space goes rogue? and just starts,
Mm-hmm.
space sweeping tons of things. That'd be bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Counter space capabilities is what they would call it. Counter space.
Counter.
The ability to destruct space systems.
Yes.
So hopefully it's peaceful, but
I don't know.
I don't know.
Given
Maybe
the state
we
of
have
the
something like
world,
that too. I don't
they're
know.
like, well, that worked. So on to DirecTV. Luckily, maybe that's why Elon put the satellites of his so low. He's like, they'll never be able to sweep these ones.
Mm.
And his have like ion thrusters, so they get out of the way. They're like limber.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, kind of crazy, but I wanted to touch on that because a unique situation.
Do you think when it does happen, like it looks like Space Invaders? Because that would be an added bonus. Like the world is ending, but at least we get to see Space Invaders in the sky. You know what I mean? Like,
well,
that'd be kind of
it'd be kind of interesting. I often think about, I often think about like future tense. Like I kind of live future tense in my mind. And some people live in the past, some people live in the present, right? And I often think about these types of things and envision like what it would look like. And to some degree, it's kind of like, does this sound morbid? But it's kind of like, I kind of sometimes wish we would just get to the point where certain things that are going to happen will happen, and then we can move on from it. So I don't know if that means
like, I don't want bad things to happen, but maybe they could just all happen at once and be done with them.
Well, maybe bad things are going to happen. And if they are, then let's just get it over with, right? Rip the Band-Aid off. Or maybe we can get to a point where they could never happen. And if that's going to happen, great. Like we could get to some type of way of like completely, immobilizing, dictator like rule. And I don't know what that would look like, but it's an interesting situation. I'm getting too philosophical, I think, but
no, I mean, it's something to think about. It's like we kept there's certain subjects where like, oh, we want to talk about this and we just have to wait. Like it's 5 more minutes. We could talk about this in like 5 more minutes. Otherwise our conversation isn't real. And a lot of times we hear our opinions. Well, for some of these things, we hear them live with you. So
right.
we're discussing and reacting to these as we go through it. We try to make it as genuine as possible but not like be total jerks and catch each other off guard too much. Too much.
Kind of interesting.
Sometimes it's fun. Like the rat story. That was great. Like seeing your facial expression for the first time to the rat. Like
that was awesome. So did you see this? You know how Ukraine has been requesting the U.S. and NATO to implement no-fly zones in Russia?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit last week.
In Ukraine. And I know you have some interesting articles pertaining to the resources that have been kind of talked about for aviation, but
I mostly just have some thoughts on it. I don't know. And
well, one thing.
This might be a good spot to share a quote from someone who's been on the show before. Remember, I said I have a quote from Mac. Let's keep this in mind as we read through these, because we might have some opinions and they might be different. Honestly, for those of you listening, you've heard us say it before. We don't really care what each other think. I mean, we care, but we allow for opinion. But Mac, who was on here before, said, I've come to the point over the last 2 years that, and he's going to hear this and be like, that's not exactly what I said, but the gist of it is,
that's exactly what
the gist of it is. Yeah. The gist of it is, he doesn't want to believe, he can't believe the news anymore. And he said, I don't believe it. I hear it. And I'm not going to believe anything anymore unless I see it with my own eyes. Like, yeah, I think a lot of us are there with a lot of things. If there's one thing that this last 2 years has taught us, like, it's this, and then it's this, and then it's this, and then it's this, and then it's this.
That's really, it's really hard. And it's a lot of people have feel that way. And it's unfortunate in some respects, and it's kind of good though, too, in some areas of, in some ways, we've become so influenced by certain areas of not just like mainstream news, but social media news. And we've kind of learned the lesson in how quick opinions can change and be influenced by social media, and kind of hopefully matured as a society and continue to mature in how we get our information from social media.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about it.
Hopefully that's growing.
I think we've talked about it before, but it's like our news, and not saying that there wasn't propaganda before. Obviously there was. You go back through history, there's tons of it. You know, we learned about it when we went to Rome. We were just talking about that. But remember that word comes from there. The propaganda word comes from their government, like falsifying and like basically getting people worked up over the wrong thing. But journalism, by and large, I think is on a comeback, but also is dead. And the reason I say it's on a comeback is because people have the ability like this, like we admittedly don't have a ton of people that watch or listen to this, but we enjoy this and we're able to do this because we have the means to do it. And we have the technology to do it and to broadcast it to whoever cares to listen or download later on. And that just wasn't available back in the day. I mean, you could send a letter. You could try to send a letter to a bunch of people. You could try to put it on a bulletin board, but it wasn't the same. And so we have a lot of people now, and I think that's why a lot of people had some correct information, even through this whole last couple of years, and through a lot of other things where they were on the ground and they were actually there, and there were reporters that were on the news saying things that are supposed to be reporting and doing journalism, but they're really just regurgitating what they're told to say. And so maybe there's an element of truth on the news. I'm not saying everything is fake, but that they don't know maybe even. And they're not the person who was studying it and like walking along and doing it. And now we have the ability to in our pocket. Like people can live stream it. Now they could cut it and they could, you could make arguments that things could be falsified. But that is a lot of the problem. You just don't know what to believe. You tune into Fox News and then you go tune into CNN, put them up next to each other. They'll be exactly the opposite. And like, where do you want?
And that's what's really hard during times of war, right? Because during times of war, misinformation is a valuable tool. And for both sides, Ukraine is using it as a valuable tool. There was this whole, fighter pilot that they had been talking about that was shooting down Russian planes, and maybe it wasn't true. And then Russia's been talking about, how Ukraine has a bunch of Nazis that are full of, basically, fascism. The entire country is evil, justifying the war.
Right.
But one article that's kind of interesting that doesn't seem to be necessarily have an agenda to it, I was reading about with Ukraine, is the Ukrainian president was asking for a long time, and still is, about creating a no-fly zone over Ukraine.
Right.
But one thing that Ukraine has been utilizing lately, and it's pretty cool, they're using small, nimble, redeployable drones to carry out missions to attack convoys and certain targets in the Russian lines and behind Russian lines. And the drones aren't necessarily like massive. I think they have a wingspan of like 7.5 feet,
still pretty big.
Is like pretty big, right? But they're not like a whole plane, like a normal, like a large plane. But they can fly for a few hours, which is really cool. I think they fly up to like 1,300 feet. Mostly automatic. But it's interesting because they have to have drones that can fly in front of them, I guess, or something like this, that coordinate its targets, which is kind of interesting. But they're called Punisher. They're called Punisher drones.
Really?
And yeah, it's kind of cool. They can have, I think it was, up to 6 pounds of explosives on them while they're flying, which doesn't sound like that much, but
you'd be shocked.
Yeah, payload of over 6 pounds of explosives. 6 pounds. That really doesn't sound like that large of a.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is like
pounds.
There was some of that going back to the planes being shot down. I saw an article that said this looks like they were shot down by. There's a NATO missile. I trained to use it, and I'm like looking at it, I'm like, that looks like what they do. Like it legit looks like what they do. And if that's the case and they're getting some of that NATO stuff, that is interesting. Maybe they aren't. Maybe it's just falsified. Who knows? But the few pictures I saw, I was like, yeah, that definitely looks like it. And if they were close enough, low enough, and slow enough, for sure, like it's doable. Like they're a fire and forget. And those little things are 24 inches long and they don't weigh very much at all, but they will take out like tanks and like bunkers and whatnot. Like,
Well, what's really cool about this is in conjunction with these drones, the Ukrainian government, and this is actually really cool. Like a lot of people in Europe have been donating drones to the Ukrainian forces that are not capable of carrying an arsenal,
They're like,
but used
like
as a
commercial
way of
drones?
distracting. Yeah, commercial,
Yeah.
just like normal drones, like even like the what's it called?
The DJIs or whatever.
Yeah,
The Mavics.
the Mavics, the Phantom. um, but a lot of people throughout Europe are sending drones to Poland to cross the border into Ukraine, so that way when they launch these Punisher drones, which actually have arsenal, the other drones, it would be just like kind of a fun thing to be flying these drones as a purpose to distract the Russian military and surface to air missiles potentially, to allow these Punisher drones to hit their targets. So it's kind of like a really unique type of warfare.
Yeah. Speaking of that, like you and I, the thing that we were trying to refrain from talking about was this. I don't know if it's a rumor. I don't know if it's real. I honestly don't know. I have some ideas, but we can chat about it. That there's news agencies and even some of the U.S. ones that are saying that Poland, some of them said they were providing, some said they already were providing, some said they were working with them. This one specifically said that Poland may provide Ukraine with MiG-29 fighters and Su-25 attack aircraft and receive F-16 fighters in exchange from the U.S. And they're saying the Wall Street Journal reported that. So it was a U.S. production or publication that was saying that. And then supposedly, and I can even pop this up so that people can see it, if I can find it, that the Chancellor, the Prime Minister of Poland, so the English one, if you look, it's at Premier RP_Ian. There's two, and it's just a translated English one. And it says, unfortunately, you're spreading misinformation with a quotation from February 27th, 22. Poland won't send its fighter jets to Ukraine as well as allow its airports. We significantly help in many other areas. So they're not saying... Poland has been very, very open that they stand with Ukraine, that they're taking in refugees. They're telling other people that they should take in refugees. That they've taken in like over 100,000, and I think it's more than that, but it's big numbers of people that they're taking in. And this is a country that knew what it was like to need to flee. And I don't know. I don't know what to think of this. I guess.
So this actually, I have an article that confirms that. Okay. The New York Times posted an article. Okay. And it came out yesterday. Okay. And it said that the U.S. government is still exploring, actively trying to figure out if they could find a way of having Poland provide Ukraine these planes and then the MiG-29s and then backfill them, like you said. But that is true that in this New York Times article, it does quote the Polish government saying that they are not, we are not sending any jets to Ukraine because that would open a military interference with the Ukrainian conflict.
Well, and that's where my mind goes. It's like, is this just all like fog of war? Like someone's like, maybe even us, maybe even someone else is trying to stir this up to make it look like this so that things get worse. Like they want the fighting to happen or they want it to be aimed at someone else. I don't know. It just looks really strange that all these publications at the same time started doing this. Either that or it's like Russia false flagging. Who knows? Like getting them to say this stuff so that the war looks more founded or it looks like they have more reason to go further. I don't know. Like it just, all of it seems just like really weird with like them saying like, yeah, we'll let people through. And then it being rumored that they're not. And it's like 3 times they're going back and forth to the fact that today, Putin was saying, like, in order to get peace, you must say that they could never become a part of the European Union. They could never become a part of NATO. Like, all these really big things. Who knows? Like, it could be as much as our own leadership trying to false flag this and drag someone else into it. Who knows? There was a quote, like, we played that clip, and I thought it was really great, and a lot of people have used it. Of Tulsi Gabbard saying like, we just need to say they're not going to be a part of the UN. There's a guy that I follow on Twitter, and I'm trying to there's a picture over it.
Or no, not a member of NATO.
Yeah, not a member of NATO. Sorry, yes. And he said I think it was today or yesterday. He said the fastest way for the U.S. leaders to stop the war is to tank the price of oil all the way to the bottom by unleashing American energy. This devalues Russia's massive resource reserves, and Biden won't do it. It would also have inflation. Like on our side, it would help with our inflation that we're already going into. We're going to get more inflation numbers this week. We don't have a lot of time to go into those details, but Thursday could be nothing. It could also be a dire day of more, and we could see oil skyrocket. If you go look, if you know anything about charts, go look at the charts for oil. It looks like it could break $200, and if it does, we're going to be looking at $4 to $6 a gallon for a very long time. With inflation, it may never go back down. And he said at the end of it, he said it's almost as if they want the US dollar to fail, because this would not only help with defunding Russia, it would also help with our own production, meaning that we would start producing more, and it could help with our own inflation. So it's like a win-win for us to do that. The other thing that I was listening to, because we talked about this last week, is that sanctions, the EU is saying, like, there's a lot of their money that's places we can't sanction it. Like, we can't lock it up. Well, we had PayPal shut down payments this week. We had Visa, MasterCard shut down. The people are hurting, not the government. Like, if we know the government the sanctions aren't really working for them, the only way to make it work for them is to make it hurt and make them not have income. And yet a lot of countries, even Germany, is still buying oil from Russia. And we could reroute that to other places. And he went on to say in another spot, like, start drilling, start fracking again, start doing this, open up the pipeline, start building it, do it so that Russia doesn't get funded. And
interesting.
Yeah.
So one thing that I would say, obviously there's so many levels to all of this. But there was an article, and Putin made an announcement this week, and it seemed like everybody kind of dialed back after Putin talked about this. But he said that as we were implementing all these sanctions, he said, if you guys continue to push these sanctions, I will start to consider these as acts of war against my country. Right. Essentially was what his terminology was. So I'm curious if there's certain levels of sanctions and counterattacks, like maybe oil, right? Like really tanking the oil prices, that Putin would see as an attack, not necessarily troops, but he would be like, okay, that's too far, and he's crazy, and they're concerned that he would then just have no concern.
I was listening to some stuff on today is that during this whole C-19 lockdown, basically he was with a couple advisors that are known to be a bit nutty the entire time. And so they're like, this could have been the fact that he was cooped up and they had the ear of this guy for the last 2 years. They could have egged him on. I mean, if any one of us would have a hard time if we were egged on for 2 years to do some crazy stuff. I'm not trying to throw him excuses or anything. I'm just saying, I think he is kind of crazy, and he might, crazy can get crazier, right? So especially when egged on, but
you get used to it.
But what this would do, instead of sanctioning, it would their GDP would go to zero, because that's like what they make. And so it just
it's interesting.
Kill their income source.
With that, Russia, as all these sanctions and kind of pressure that was placed on Russia was implemented, Russia came out today, I believe it was, with a list of foreign states that Russia considers quote unquote unfriendly states and or unfriendly countries.
I didn't read some of those, so I'm curious.
Yeah, he includes, I'll read to you the countries that are included so far. So Australia, Albania, Andorra, United Kingdom, Anguilla, British Virgin Islands, Europe, all of the European Union, Iceland, Canada, Monaco, New Zealand, Norway, Republic, so South Korea, a couple little countries that nobody really knows about, USA, Taiwan. Now, here's what's interesting. They listed Taiwan. So that means
as if Taiwan needs more enemies right now.
Well, no, but here's what's interesting. And I bet China didn't like this.
Maybe.
Because that would mean that they would recognize Taiwan as an independent state of China, and China does not.
Oh, yeah.
So that's fascinating and kind of a little bit of maybe a diplomatic faux pas on the Russian
Is that
side.
like a futon?
But Yeah, it's just a little bit more of a paw with it.
Okay. It's like a dog couch.
Switzerland and Japan.
Yeah.
But a country that was not included on there that I was surprised by was Israel. Israel was not considered unfriendly state to them.
Didn't Israel just meet with him?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they did yesterday, and they said it didn't go well. That's all I heard.
Really?
Was just
I didn't know that.
It didn't go well.
So Israel has publicly condemned Russia for its invasion.
Yeah.
But somehow it's taken on kind of more of a mediation role during the conflict. And you're right. He did see the Prime Minister, Naftali Bennett, was in Moscow on Saturday and spoke with Putin. But apparently it didn't go good, huh?
That's all I heard. I know nothing. Maybe it was the complete opposite of that. I just heard it was, admittedly, it was on a crypto channel that was updating, and like he met with him and he said it didn't go well.
It was on Discord channel.
And it was Cryptozaurus. So
okay.
I am George. He's a good guy.
Oh yeah, we're all George.
But he talks about world conflicts because they affect the markets, and I like it. I love hearing his updates. One thing I wish he would do, and he's probably not going to ever hear this.
He does too many updates.
I like it. He does them quick because he's just like, pow, 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 and then he answers questions. So if you don't want to listen to the questions, then you're done. Like you can kind of hear, oh, this is why things are going this way. Da, 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 da. Here's what could happen. Here's the CPI. This is what it could do. I like it because it's quick, fast.
But what were you saying that you don't like about it?
I wish he would put the articles in there. I sometimes can find them, but I wish they were like in his show notes or something. But I know he does them like twice a day. Helpful. So, but that was his comment, was it didn't go well. But like I said, he fast fires things, so he doesn't get too much into the weeds unless the weeds matter, for markets. So the other thing that I was interested about, and I don't know if you read anything about this, and I didn't dig deep into this at all, but I heard this. We talked about how the few places that they bombed in the beginning were supposedly, biolabs of the U.S. And who knows? Who knows?
Oh, yeah.
Who knows about that, right? But there was an article that came out, and this was, who is this? It was just on the bulletin. The U.S. official is warning that Russia invasion of Ukraine risks release of dangerous pathogens. And this was on February 25th. I'm like, what? No, let's not go down that road again. Like, we've had enough. Okay.
So Russia was saying the U.S. had dangerous pathogens.
The U.S. was
Ukraine.
U.S. officials were saying the Russian invasion of Ukraine risks the release of dangerous pathogens.
Oh,
and
okay.
I'm like, please not C-22. Like, let's not play that game.
Mm-hmm.
You already wrecked it. People really won't listen this time.
So, and I know there's we're not experts in this field, but obviously, the Ukrainian power stations, these nuclear plants that Russia's taking over, and that's like kind of like it seems like they're really trying to capitalize on those areas to eliminate the power in a lot of places of Ukraine. So it's kind of it's a smart move on their part.
I still think Russia messing with nuclear power plants is like a great play.
Right.
We've done this before, guys. Remember when you tried to hide it and you still deny that you killed people?
It doesn't seem like a great play. But what's interesting is I saw on a Russian media that they were saying that the Ukrainians are trying to create a dirty bomb with their power plants. And
imagine
so
what their news looks like, though.
I know, dude, right? How are they explaining the world turning on them? How are they explaining all these companies backing out of their country and they're the good guys?
That's where, like, and we've talked about this the last couple of weeks, is the people are the ones that I care about. The ones that are caught in the middle that don't want this war, whether they're Russian, Ukrainian, whoever they are, that are caught in the middle of this. It sucks. These sanctions aren't hurting the government. We know that from what the EU leaders have said. It's hurting their people. And so they're not able to get their money. They're not able to make trades. Their markets are in the garbage. They already were poor, and now they're like less than that. And so that's why I think it is a great idea to entertain the idea of let's just not buy oil from them. Everyone just decide not to. Maybe it goes up. It's going to go up anyway. We already know that historically from war. Like, let's just not
Yeah,
buy it
it's
from
it's
them.
easier said than done though, right? Obviously, like if it's easy and it's cheap, people would prefer to do
Yeah.
it. That's like saying don't go to McDonald's. If
Yeah.
McDonald's is an evil
Well,
company,
it
right?
didn't take
But
us
if they're
long
easy and cheap,
to get there, though. We were oil independent, and now we're not because we chose not to be.
well, but I'm not saying the
Yeah,
U.S. I'm saying the
that's
world.
true. But even
And
the
I think
U.S., because we're
a
the
lot of
largest
countries.
consumer, is
Mhm.
go back to that. Like the
Are we the largest consumer? We're not the largest consumer of Russian uh,
I don't know. I don't know the percentage.
oils.
I
I think we're only like 7% of Russian.
well,
Like
that's
it's
still
a low
that's
percent
still a good
compared to the
chunk. And
world.
I think if the U.S. were to lead the way, others would be like, okay, we'll find a way too. And what if we got not only like imagine this, what if we exported oil? Like, what if we got to that point?
I think we do,
But
don't
I'm
we?
saying, what if we got all the way oil independent and exported? Like, became
Oh, I
not
get what you're
only
saying.
not a
I get what-
consumer anymore of theirs, but a competitor. And I don't know.
Yeah, sorry, it's 8%. The U.S. imported 8% of its oil and refined products
8% of
from
ours,
Russia
but I
last
want to know
year.
how much of theirs we buy. So they provide about 20 to 25% of the oil.
No, that's what I'm saying. The U.S. imported 8% of its oil and refined products from Russia
I know, but
last
that's
year.
8% of our imports from Russia. I want to know how much of a
Right.
percentage of oil and of Russia's oil do we take? Like, is it half of what they have is our 8%?
Oh, I got what you're saying. Like we use so much is 8% half of
Right.
theirs.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
I
exactly.
gotcha.
So, because we are one of the largest consumers of oil, and that's not going to change. And here's the thing. We know tomorrow we can't all have electric cars. We've talked about the logistics of that. We can't all go to, quote unquote,
Elon's
quote
working on it,
unquote. Hey,
man.
yeah, he is. Well, we couldn't do it tomorrow, right? We could all agree it wouldn't work tomorrow, right? And it's probably going to take at least a few years. It's not. It is
Yeah,
not.
at
It's
least.
not better for the environment to ship oil from Russia to here, right?
Well, I'll tell you what. Some positive news. You probably saw this. Elon Musk just got approval for his gigafactory
Good.
in Germany, like final approval, which was like something that was a question if he was actually going to get it. But I think this oil issue has shown Germany the need to have vehicles that don't use as much oil.
I'm just saying.
Potentially.
In the meantime, if really what we're wanting to do is have less of an environmental impact, it does cause more environmental impact to ship oil here versus just get it here. That's what I'm saying.
Oh yeah, that's true too.
Like, so
Yeah.
in the meantime, that's a step in the right direction. And then we just get better and
Fascinating,
better
though.
and better. So
Well, it'll be fascinating in 20 years.
yeah,
What the dramas are that we're
it'd
dealing
be
with,
fascinating in a week
and
to be
where
like,
the technology goes.
turns out they were providing
Golly.
ponies, not horses. I wouldn't be shocked.
In 2 years, we've lived through. I feel like 20 years
Dude, at least here,
or
we
more.
had fire, we
Yeah.
had ice,
Yeah, fire, ice, virus,
scandemic.
wars, drama people back and forth. Yeah,
No
lots
one
of
likes
it.
each other.
It was crazy. Yeah. Okay, so I got some shower thoughts, man. You got any shower
I do.
thoughts?
I have 4.
Let's do it. Ooh, you have 4? Okay, you go first.
Oh, sweet. Okay, the first one comes from my brother. Now this, depending on how you think about this could be right or wrong, but it is an interesting thought, and maybe it could be worded a little bit better. But the difference, and I wrote it down, so I was like kind of paraphrasing him. The difference between copying someone, I think what you could say like plagiarizing, and quoting someone is just a matter of time.
Let me think about that. Okay. Well, is it though? Because if you're plagiarizing,
He said copying.
You're not
That
referencing
was
them.
my words. So,
right? I guess
and maybe copying
no
an
matter
idea.
how long ago, because eventually you always want to quote them and say who they said it. But if you don't know who says it, and eventually like 1,000 years from now, it just becomes common terminology, then yeah, that could be a matter of time. I see that. Okay. First shower thought.
Go.
The further you are away from someone, typically the less creepy it is to stare at them. Right?
It depends on if you have binoculars.
There's definitely a range factor to staring at somebody.
Yeah. But if you're like
Definitely.
spotting
There's
scope,
definitely.
1,000 yards, kind of creepy.
Yeah, that could be. But with the naked eye.
Yeah, the naked eye would be weird. That wouldn't be as bad.
Mm-hmm. Hit me.
Okay. I just helped a friend move house. Libraries must be the heaviest buildings in the world.
That's funny.
Boxes of books are impressively heavy.
That's a pretty dense building, I'd have to say.
I wonder if they have to compensate for that. Like, do they have to build?
They probably have
that kind of
concrete
weight?
Flooring.
I mean, but like,
Yeah, I bet they have cement flooring.
I mean, like, but like with second stories, like, do they have to take that into account?
Yeah.
And
I'm sure they do.
they're like,
Yeah.
well, that one didn't go well.
Probably. Yeah, that's interesting. If you think about it, retirement age is just a dollar value.
It's true. It's also
kind of a cool
like
thought.
Different. It depends on your perspective. To some people, it's like X amount of dollars. To some people, it's like freedom to just live normally and have all their time back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. But it's all correlated to that dollar value usually.
Yeah. And I saw a fascinating video. I don't know if you saw it this week. I think you watch this guy every once in a while. He pegged the NASDAQ to silver markets instead of the dollar because a lot of people don't know this, but our dollar used to be backed by mostly silver. And when you do that, it is very unspectacular. Like,
really?
When you take into account inflation, because silver hasn't done that much. When you take into account inflation, you don't make as much as even the small amounts that they say you make. It's pretty depressing, actually, to look at.
Oh, interesting.
I'll have to send you the video. It's wild. When you see the chart, you're like, oh, goodness gracious. And it's all since 1971 when we stopped pegging to that. Anyway, okay, next up. Your childhood picks are your younger picks and also your older picks.
Yeah, that's true. Depressing. I don't know why. I always get sad when I see childhood picks.
Really?
Well,
Is it because you didn't grow up with an Xbox?
History. No, I don't know. It's weird. I have a weird like relationship with past. Like, there's things that if it's an experience and a memory, it makes me happy to look at it and remember it. But if it's like pictures of like my kids when they're young, it makes me sad because I think, oh, I will never get them back at that age. You know, those types of things are kind of like weird. But all right, my last shower thought. Wah, wah. Not even that great of a shower thought.
Curtis sheds a tear on stream.
Very true. Very true. Muscle memory is responsible for a lot of forgotten passwords.
Oh, that's true.
IMO.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's just like, oh yeah, I'm just used to doing this. And I've thought about this. When I have a password that I always put into a keyboard, and then I go to put it on my phone, I'm like, oh shoot, I don't know the password because it's not the same muscle movements with my fingers. Terrible.
It is terrible.
Terrible.
The amount of people.
All right, you got one more?
Yeah, I have one more. The amount of people that forget passwords. I'm in that field.
Endless.
It's depressing.
Endless for you.
Yeah, a lot of people have memory problems. Especially the best is when they change it that morning. They logged in 3 times, and by 4:30
and they didn't write it
no
down.
Idea what it is.
That's just great.
Yeah, like maybe you should get that checked out. Anyway, when you pop bubble wrap, you are releasing air from somewhere else in the world into your environment.
Ooh, that's kind of fun. That's kind of true. Yeah.
Maybe it's those Ukrainian dangerous pathogens.
or I guess any type of like 2-liter bottle that has air in it still.
Yeah, but most that's like carbonated air, like it's built up.
Mm-hmm.
So it's probably not.
Yeah,
It's
that's
probably
interesting.
pretty purified. Not like bubble wrap. I bet
That's
they don't
interesting.
purify those bubbles.
A bunch of toots in those.
Oh,
Bunch
can
of
you
toots.
imagine if the guy making bubble wrap had bad gas and then you went to pop it and it like had captured it?
It's like a gas bomb.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I feel like
that's funny.
that's marketable.
There you go.
Like those glitter
There you
bombs.
go. Like a prank thing.
Those glitter
a prank
bombs
thing.
that you can get. You can send your friends and the glitter blows up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What about a smelly bomb?
Love it. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Well, guys, hopefully the world calms down and we have no more wars over this next couple weeks.
Unless Curtis gets his way and everything wrong that's ever going to happen happens this week.
Just rip off the Band-Aid, and then let's just move on to a society like Jean-Luc Picard would want, where we live in peace. We have a united federation. We explore strange new worlds. We seek out new life and new civilizations and bold to go where no man has gone before. And I think we can do it, guys. We just need to start watching season 2 of Picard. That's how we're going to wrap this night up. Yes. Perfect. Wrap that up perfectly.
You and the 3 people that watch that show are,
oh my God.
You're in for such a treat. It's such a good show for you.
I'm so proud of it. This is how much I love Star Trek and this type of stuff. I'm watching through season 1 again just so I can get prepared to watch the new episode of season 2 right now. I love it.
Yeah. I really liked Next Generation. I'm not going to lie. When it was on replays, it came on every night. It was good.
Very has a nostalgic aspect to it.
Yeah.
For sure. All right, guys. That's all we got for you. We hope you have a fantastic week. And we appreciate y'all. We love y'all. Stay safe. Stay classy. And stay saucy.
Yeah. And maybe like think twice before believing what you read. I don't know. That's what I got.
Or maybe believing isn't seeing. Seeing is believing.
Santa.
That was off. Do you know what that's off of? There you go. You nailed it. Tim Allen.
Good times.
Awesome. All right.
Well,
peace out, guys.
Ya.